India has a mindset where it hits, it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch proportionally.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है. हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I have with me Mr. Kanwal Sibal, someone who's dealt with the US firsthand, right? So we will try and understand what's happening in the US because major changes. I've actually termed the US now Trumpistan, and I think that is where the entire story has to go. But before that, sir, Namaskar, welcome to the show. What's your initial opinion of Donald Trump's opening salvo?
Well, there's been more than one salvo, so I don't know which salvo you're talking about. When each salvo, creates reverberations of its own. Look, there is, of course, before he actually took over the presidency, the territorial expansionism claims. He wanted Greenland to be part of the United States. He wanted Canada to become the 51st state of the United States and started calling Trudeau the governor of Canada. And he also wanted to reclaim the Panama Canal because it's the Americans who built it. After that, you've seen some other statements that he has made, uprooting the deep state in the United States, also about this woke business, moving against the entire program of DEI, which the Democrats had pushed. He also, very importantly, talked about making the United States an energy superpower, and in fact declared an energy emergency with his slogan of "Drill, baby, drill." In other words, jettisoning the entire climate change agenda. And of course, he talked about tariffs right, left, and center, 25% tariffs on Canada and on Mexico, and also 100% tariffs on BRICS countries if they move toward de-dollarization. And on China, he made certain statements which were contradictory. The only person whom he invited by name to his inauguration was Xi Jinping. He didn't mention anybody by name. And then he spoke to Xi Jinping just before his inauguration. And Xi Jinping then sent his vice president to the inauguration, clearly conveying that some kind of a basic understanding was reached that he will not do anything that will immediately embarrass China, because that would have been politically problematic for Xi Jinping. If he sent his vice president as a gesture, and on the morrow, he imposed those 60% or 100% tariffs or whatever. Even on this business about TikTok, he gained grace for himself for 75 days so as not to do it on the morrow of Chinese vice president's visit. At the same time, he's been threatening China with tariffs. And if you look at, and that's related, after all, he's the one who's appointed Mark Rubio as the Secretary of State. And if you saw the confirmation hearings of Mark Rubio, they're blistering towards China. His other appointees are also uniformly anti-Chinese.
Anti-China.
Anti-China. On Russia, he began by talking about finding a way out, promoting peace. But also he's been threatening Russia with the additional sanctions if they refuse to negotiate. He's been talking about casualties that the Ukrainians and the Russians have suffered, which experts say are totally misleading. That he's been badly advised by whoever is giving him these figures. Earlier, he said that he would resolve the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours. Now he's given himself 100 days. The Secretary of State, Rubio, is becoming much more realistic in terms of assessing the possibility of a solution, agreeing that it is very complex, it will take time, etc., etc. He's talked about an early meeting with Putin, and before that, a telephonic call with Putin. So, he is, as you all know, very unpredictable. He's impetuous. He doesn't reflect carefully on what he says. He just shoots off his mouth. He's brimming with self-confidence after his spectacular win in the last elections. And therefore, all his earlier tendencies of shooting off his mouth and not being careful about what he says, they have been aggravated by his sense of victory this time, where he feels that if, despite all that, all those quirks of his personality and public positions and his belief how he has to promote the art of the deal, as if international relations is only deal making. This is a very, very, how should I say, puerile view of international relations. That it's like a commercial proposition, a contract that is being discussed between two corporations, and that's how you strike a deal in a business framework. This is not how international relations work, because there is the whole thing about history, sovereignty, culture, the civilizational background of countries, the mindset of countries. When I talked about culture, culture dictates behavior, how you look at things, and then how countries look at their national interests, rightly or wrongly, but they have perceptions of their own national interests, their own perceptions of national security. They have a historical sense of what the dangers to their security and sovereignty are. And then they have an image of themselves. So it's not as if countries, especially even small ones, but I'll come to that. They have even small ones that they are going to sacrifice, not sacrifice, they're going to simply look at the issues and the resolution of the issues as part of a deal making. Now, look at our own neighbors. If you would think that small countries in Nepal or Sri Lanka or even Bangladesh or Maldives would, in the context of a pure sense of deal making, would not actually follow such antagonistic policies towards India. After all, in the case of Sri Lanka, let's say the Tamil question has been deep-rooted in terms of the problems that we had, and they're nothing to do with deal-making. In the case of Nepal, there is how should I say, overblown sense of sovereignty and looking at everything from the viewpoint of how they can assert their separateness and their independence and their sovereignty towards India, even if it was to cost them in terms of their own interests. In the case of Bangladesh, there is a whole history of partition and Islamism and everything else, which has nothing to do with deal making. After all, the Islamists are not motivated by deal making. They have a religious agenda, a certain viewpoint of Islam and how the rest of the world has to adjust to the tenets of Islam and stuff like that, impose their worldview. Now, if the Taliban treat their women very badly, it has very deep cultural and religious roots. It's nothing to do with deal making. That all right, if America gives them $100 million, $200, $1 billion, they will give women all the rights that modern women have. It's not going to happen. So to come back, to the question you asked. We really don't know what Trump will do, will not do. He's taken certain actions after he took over, which are bewildering. One is that he walked out of the WHO. Yes, the WHO needs reforms, no doubt, but everybody agrees that that you have to prepare the international community against future pandemics.
Yeah.
There has to be international cooperation. Now, the only organization which can provide that kind of cooperation is the WHO. Now, WHO has not functioned properly. Maybe China has too much influence there, and so do people like Bill Gates and these foundations who then give money to the WHO and then set the WHO agenda on vaccines and everything else. And these vaccines and other things are controlled by foundations, so they make a lot of money out of it. So this philanthropy is sort of based on huge profits that these companies make. So therefore, WHO needs reforms, fine, but you're not going to get a reform of the WHO by just walking out of it. And then the Paris Climate Change Agreement, which is even worse. Either all of us agree that this climate change business is a hoax, that it is a kind of a ploy by Western companies because they have these technologies to build up this climate change cataclysm and then sell their technologies to the rest of the world and dominate that space for years to come. Or you believe that there is some truth in this, looking at the fluctuations that we see in weather conditions and storms and hurricanes and drought and everything else, and the warming up of the climate, stuff like that. The point is that right from the time when the UNFCCC was set up, and all these wretched COPs have been taking place, 28 of them, this has been on the agenda. And let's say India's position has been very clear and firm that if you want the rest of the world, the developing world, to adopt these new technologies, which are climate change related, then there has to be a flow of technologies and finances to the developing countries so that they can pursue this mitigation and adaptation agenda, because this is extremely, extremely expensive. Now, if the United States just walks out, first of all, he's now saying that forget this business about this renewables and changing over from a economy based on fossil fuels to renewables. For example, as you know, in the United States, he just passed executive orders: no more windmills and no more of these solar panels and stuff. And then he's going to drill so much that the United States will become the largest producer of oil and gas, which will give the United States full energy independence. This goes totally against all that has been discussed for the last 3 decades or so on this climate change problem. So one doesn't know how the rest of the world is going to cope with it when the principal player, the most powerful country, has walked out of what is an agenda for the international community and accepted as such and related to the future of the planet and therefore future of the humanity. And then he's talked about the territorial expansion of the United States in his speech. And I pointed out in a discussion the day before yesterday that nobody has picked it up in the press or pointed this out, that he actually in his speech talked about the territorial expansion of the United States. He didn't want to say in his speech just after the inauguration that he's going to claim Greenland and Panama or whatever, but he let in this little phrase. And now, as you know, he has rung up the Prime Minister of Denmark, and Denmark doesn't know which way to go, because they thought that he was not probably serious, or They could tell him, look, what you want? You want more bases, we can give you more bases. You want more access to resources, well, we can give you contracts. But it's not a question that of parting with our sovereignty to you. But Trump has a big, and I'll come to this now, he has a very big agenda in mind, because he knows that because of climate change, in which he doesn't believe apparently, the Arctic route is going to be opened. And if it gets opened, and then the dominant player in the new trade routes will be Russia. Other countries don't have much of a, they have also, being literal states of the Arctic, they also have a say, but the dominant player is Russia, not the United States. But if they get Greenland, then they become a dominant player. Then they are able, apart from extracting resources or whatever else, and the security aspect of it because of the missiles over the North Pole from Russia to United States. Apart from that, there is this whole question of dominating this trade route. Number two, this energy thing that he talks about. Why does he want to actually become the dominant energy player? Because then he can export energy all over. And he thinks that this can hurt Russia's position as one of the biggest suppliers of oil and gas. That means undercut Russia, both in terms of
the Arctic and
trade routes, as also by flooding the market with American oil, bring down oil prices and hurt Russia's economy. So at the same time, he wants to sort of resolve the Ukraine conflict and engage with Russia. So there is a lot of lack of clarity in his posturing.
Seems like he's in a rush, so he wants to do everything on the list without realizing which one to do first.
Yes, he's impatient. He's impatient, no doubt, and he wants quick results. The point is that since he is very narcissistic and doesn't want to be at the receiving end of anything, he wants to be successful and victorious in anything he does. If he doesn't get his way, then what can he do? After all, don't forget that it is during his first term that the maximum that sanctions were imposed on Russia.
Yep.
And other diplomatic steps were taken against Russia.
Even Ukraine was armed during his first term.
Also. So let's see. I think it's very difficult to gauge at this point how all this will turn out. And I'll also make another point. To my mind, United States remains the world's most powerful country economically.
Yeah. No question.
Yeah.
No
China isn't. Russia still is a powerful entity. Other countries have risen also, but in terms of the share of United States in the global GDP, it is stable. In terms of its military power, notwithstanding the fact that they've not had success in many areas, but look at the spread of their military power with God knows how many bases around the world.
836, yes, sir.
And forces that are deployed in every corner of the world. And of course, it's the largest economy also of the world. Then, of course, the huge economic and advantage that the United States has because of the dollar as the reserve currency. I mean, they can keep printing dollars and this and that. When they print dollars, where do they go? They go into the American economy. American economy means what? It goes into the corporation, in the hands of the corporations. So they are floating with capital. So what do? They buy up companies all over the world. That capital is then used as an extension of their power.
Yep.
So that's how they are dominating the whole system. So when their fiscal policies, their monetary policies, whatever they are of the Fed, they have an impact immediately on the rest of the world. Look at the huge disadvantage that the rest of the world has vis-a-vis America, who are sucking in the wealth of other countries. And when the other countries have these huge surpluses, then where do they park these surpluses mostly? They park them in the U.S. Treasury bills. So they are in a wonderful position. Now, point I'm making is they already are dominating in so many ways. So when he says make America great again, what does he mean? Obviously, he means, or he could mean, that I have some challenge to my power that has emerged. Now I want to make sure I'm so great again that those challenges are controlled. So I'll be even more preeminent globally. Now, why do you want to be more preeminent globally? Because you want to do good, or you want to pursue your own national interest? Now, if you want to pursue your own national interest, then it has to be at the cost of the national interests of others, especially as you don't believe in the UN, you don't believe any longer in international cooperative mechanisms, you want to walk out of them. So these are serious questions that one needs to ask.
For me, the biggest, interesting part is that he's kind of hell-bent on destroying global organizations, and which is good. I love it. One of the biggest things he's done is cut off aid. Now, for certain countries, for example, Bangladesh, we were discussing it offline. Aid is what they kind of stand on. And the most surprising thing for me was even Ukraine. So, except for Israel and Egypt, pardon me, the rest of the aid has been cut off. Now, how does Ukraine survive? Because Ukraine sits literally, or if I may put it the other way around, the Europeans sit on the back of Ukraine. That's their relevance today.
First of all, you're right. First of all, he suspended that only for 90 days.
So
now, let's see after 90 days what happened. They will try to refine this and see where they have to direct this aid, nevertheless, in terms of protecting their larger interests. That's one aspect. The other is that, no doubt, they have been funneling billions of dollars into Ukraine, but so has Europe. And the European Union keeps promising more and more billions of dollars to Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen announced, I forget the figure, just about 10 days ago, she's announced another, I don't know figure, maybe I'm wrong, $45 billion, or maybe 4.5 billion, or whatever the figure is, announced an additional aid to Ukraine. And this despite the fact that in Europe itself, in Germany, country she belongs to, or in France, there are serious economic woes that countries are facing. Germany is already in a recession. There's a lot of social unrest in France. Britain is though not in the EU, but Britain is also in a bit of a recession. There are huge issues that are coming up in terms of the social in the area of social issues. And yet the European Union is still giving arms to fund to Ukraine. But yes, I think what is now happening is, and Trump has made it very clear that he wants to settle the Ukraine issue.
Yeah.
And there's no love lost between Trump and Zelensky. If you see the tweet of Baron Trump Jr., who sort of mocked Zelensky when he said that I'll not be able to attend the inauguration because I have business at home. He says this guy tried 3 times unofficially to get an invitation, and 3 times this was rejected. And now he says he can't come because he's occupied at home. What a weirdo, he says. Now you can see and then if you looked at what Mark Rubio said in his confirmation hearings, that the problem with Ukraine is not so much weaponry and this and that, but they have no men.
Yeah.
And there is now, Americans are saying that why don't you bring down the mobilization age to 18 from 25, which means that if he does that, there will be a revolt in, in Ukraine, because people who are going to Kiev, and some of my foreign friends, they say that if you go there, life is totally normal. Nightclubs, this and that. One of the people I know, very high placed, he said one of the best meals I had was in Kiev. So he's trying to prevent precisely this from happening, so that public opinion doesn't go against Zelensky. But if he's forced to bring down the age of 18, there'll be more exodus of Ukrainians into Europe and elsewhere, plus resistance in the streets.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ukraine will find itself now. Yes, the point I was making was that Zelensky has got the message that there has to be a solution, and as Trump actually in his interview a couple of days ago said that Zelensky is ready for a deal. But Zelensky, being Zelensky, he's still trying to play games. Now he's saying that there can't simply be a negotiation between United States and Russia. Europe has to be part of it.
Yeah.
It has to be that Europe has to be central to these negotiations, etc., etc. So he knows that this is going to happen. So what is the way out? Now the UN, the NATO Secretary General, what does he say? It's remarkable. He says that we don't have weapons to supply to Ukraine, but Europe should pay the United States to supply weapons to Ukraine, which means he's telling the US defense companies that we can get business for you. But he'll pay you for it.
Everybody's become a salesman, huh, sir?
Can you imagine this? Can you imagine this? That if Trump is transactional, NATO wants to be transactional also. That you don't have money, but I mean, you may not have, the US government may not give you money, but we'll give you money. Please supply arms to Ukraine. So it's a total mess. However, personally, I may be wrong. I don't think that there's going to be a solution in a hurry, because the fundamental position of Russia goes against the fundamental position of Europe and certainly the Biden administration, and therefore also, in some senses, the American position even under Trump. Okay, Russia says that two things are absolutely non-negotiable: that Ukraine cannot join NATO, and number two, the 4 provinces in the east, which we have annexed, this annexation has to be legally accepted.
Yeah.
And furthermore, coming back to the first issue, that is not enough that the United States says that Ukraine will not join NATO. But NATO itself legally and formally says that Ukraine will not join NATO. Now, to get a consensus on this in Europe, and the European Union works by consensus, I can't see that happening.
Yeah.
Where NATO gives this legally binding commitment to Russia. So far as the 4 oblasts or the provinces are concerned, now that they have been formally annexed as a result of a referendum, there is no way that Putin can step back from it without compromising very seriously his own position in Russia. And I was told by someone that Kellogg, the person Trump has appointed as envoy to Ukraine and Russia, seems to be advised or believes that a fair compromise would be that Russia keeps 2 of these provinces and the other 2 revert back to Ukraine, which actually totally goes against what prompted
The war
Russia
itself.
to get annex these provinces, because they provide a land bridge to Crimea. So if he gives away Zaporizhia and Kherson, there is no land bridge to Crimea. So this will not wash. And then at the end of the day, in any negotiation, especially in which the United States is involved, which will be heavily scrutinized as to who has made the greater concession. If Trump signs on to what Putin demands, then what will Trump show to his Congress, public opinion, to the Democrats, that he's got a good deal? So I can't see.
It's a tough corner for him, sir.
It's very, very difficult.
Yeah. So, but one thing that I'm noticing is that what he's doing is an era of threats. And I'm already starting to see countries laugh at it. Mexico played a nasty one, didn't allow his aircraft to land the first day. Second day, they said, "Acha, theek hai, koi baat nahi." Denmark, whatever said and done, the first international phone call he's had after becoming the president, for which it's been acknowledged that this is the first international phone call, has been a disaster. Right? Whatever you say. So the era of threats are over. People aren't going to listen to it anymore. And that's something I personally feel he's forgotten to realize, and he's forgotten to comprehend the change in the world order that has taken place. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say that in the case of Mexico, just the Mexican president has been pushing back, because when Trump has changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, she says, I can start calling North America as Mexican America.
California.
Previous Mexican president was even more outspoken against the United States. On the other hand, if he does impose 25% tariffs on Mexico, Mexico will face an economic disaster. So Mexico will try to assert its sovereignty, but how much backing it will get from other countries, I'm not too sure. Remember, when it came to NAFTA, Trump in his first term insisted on revising NAFTA, and both Canada and Mexico played ball, and NAFTA was revised. So up to some point, Mexico will resist, but I don't think the rest of the world will make an issue out of that, and we'll leave it to the North American states to sort it out amongst themselves.
But generally speaking, the kind of threats that he's coming up with, he's literally threatening everybody left, right, and center. I'll put tariffs on you, I'll put sanctions on you, and this and that. How much do you think the global South, even the middle powers for that matter, will even accept that? Because one fine day people are going to say, okay, try it, let's see.
Let me come to Denmark. The astonishing thing is that Denmark has got no support within the European Union. They are flustered. They don't know what to do.
Yeah,
they are like this. But has van der Leyen said anything? The French president, the French foreign minister made some kind of a noise, but in a very general way. Germany doesn't have a government at the moment, but the German Olaf Scholz also made some very perfunctory noise. So neither European Union nor the principal European powers have given support to Denmark because of the odd situation that is there, where Greenland is not part of the European Union. But nevertheless, it is a territory which belongs to an EU member. And if the position of Europe has been that there cannot be change of maps after 1945, and that's why they object to what's happening in Ukraine. But on the Western side, their own NATO partner wants to change the map of Europe. So where do this? So the point is that Europe has shown its geopolitical weakness, and and in a sense, irrelevance when it can't protect its own sovereignty, as has been exposed in the case of Denmark. Insofar as tariffs is concerned, look, everybody is very concerned. Even in India, you must have seen the debate in our newspapers about how it will affect us, how we can cope with this. There was this news that all the concerned departments of Government of India have got together to assess what is it that can be done in case these tariffs are imposed, and what strategies India must evolve. So there is half an acceptance that this is going to happen. But how do we then cope with it? And do we then embed it in a larger discussion of a trade agreement with the United States? And there the US side, Trump has given an opening by the directive given to the USTR that the USTR should begin discussions with countries with which the United States has a trade deficit to see how this can be resolved as part of trade agreements. So this gives us an opening. With Europe, there will be a huge fight. In the past also, this has happened. But the point is that if he slaps enormous tariffs on French champagne and wines and this and that, the French will get flustered immediately. You remember what Trump said during his election campaign about his conversation with Macron, when the French had imposed some tax on their companies, on their high-tech companies. He said, I rang up Macron, he says, and I told him, Emmanuel, you have 1 hour to reverse your decision, because I have the document in front of me where I'm going to impose, I forget the figure, so much tariffs on your cognacs and wines or champagne. He said within half an hour, Macron came back and said, I'll reverse the order. So it'll be difficult for Europe, but there'll be a big fight. There's no doubt about it. Now,
so here the issue is, pardon me if you don't mind, it's about counter tariffs as well. The last time he did that to India, we put counter tariffs. Won't this hurt his own economy? He doesn't produce anything anymore.
Well, a couple of things. One is that China is very worried that if he imposes tariffs on Chinese goods at the level which he is talking about, then they'll face a very serious problem, because their own economy, internal economy, is not doing well. It's not moved sufficiently into a consumption-oriented economy. It still is an export-oriented economy, and this got huge. Yes, they can hit back by denying certain good technologies and products to the United States, which they have already announced. But they're very fearful that this will increase the economic problems that China faces. And of course, if there's a kind of a tariff war which goes on, it'll hurt everybody's interest. Insofar as America is concerned, he has a certain conception that I'm going to create an external revenue service, and the money that flows into US coffers as a result of increased tariffs would be enormous and would be helpful in adjusting the trade deficits that it had. He has a certain view of things. Now, you are right in saying that this is not going to help anybody. But at the same time, he thinks that whatever he may have to pay additionally for imports, because other countries may raise tariffs, that he will get compensated by
some other country,
by the tariffs, by the money that he receives as a result of high tariffs, because the United States is the biggest economy. It is an open economy. It imports enormously, and therefore he gets a lot of money. Now, whether the sums that he has done or his advisors have done make sense or not, I can't say. But this is a sort of thinking that he seems to have.
I'll ask you one small question more, and then let's get into audience questions. Uh, he's not having a smooth sail at home. That's one thing that we are realizing. There is differences between Musk and him. There has been a little bit of a clash as far as Vivek Ramaswamy is concerned, and this is all within the first week. A guy who came to make a difference. And one thing that you realize business leaders do is when they come in, they've got everything planned, everything sorted. There is no kind of washing dirty linen in public. Plus, the meeting with Bill Gates, that has not gone down well with the American right, sir. That has not gone down well. People are very, extremely upset about it, especially the new vaccine talk and this and that and the Stargate project. People are pissed off. How do you think he's going to manage it? The reason I'm asking is because I personally feel he's going to do 10%, and Bajawa banned for about 100% because he literally controls X, he controls Facebook, Instagram, he will try and control TikTok going forward. So how do you think he's going to handle this resistance at home, which he's getting, and of course the little bit of a clash he's having within his team as well?
Well, there is a view that even in the case of Mark Rubio, who, somebody said as a senator, he had no master. He was his own master. And now, when he's Secretary of State and has to work under Trump, he's no longer his own master. And therefore, he'll have to see how he's going to function. Others who have worked with him have said that he's very changeable, very unpredictable, and very difficult working with him. The other is that this time he is very confident about his own thinking and views. B, he has, and this is remarkable, unlike during his first term, he has now managed to put together a team so quickly. And in his thinking, a team of loyalists who will do what he wants. And therefore, he's confident that he can have his way. So far as differences within his own camp are concerned, I think Vivek Ramaswamy seems to have paid the price for, which I'm a bit surprised that just for a tweet where he didn't say anything terribly wrong. In fact, it made a lot of sense. And he has been castigated for that and ousted effectively, or being encouraged to resign for governorship of Ohio. Insofar as Elon Musk is concerned, in fact, his thing with Sam Altman, on which they had public differences, but Trump then went ahead and said that, look, Elon has strong likes and dislikes, but I also have strong likes and dislikes. So he papered that over. What kind of influence Musk will have on him with regard to his China policy, because Musk has a lot of investments in China, and more investments are being planned. It remains to be seen. These are certain real contradictions in Trump's own character, in the thinking he has with regard to what is advantageous to the United States, in his own projected policies. This will play out as it goes. And then let's not forget that at the end of the day, Congress has its own powers. So it's not as if on every issue they will just lie down flat and prostrate themselves and agree to what Trump says. The Democrats still remain a potent force. After all, he got only 1.5% more of national popular vote than the Democrats. The Democrats are still there. But at the moment, the public sentiment is in his favor because of this remarkable comeback that he has been able to realize. And his popularity at the moment is very high. And some of the things he's doing, although you didn't ask me that question, I would fully applaud, especially this woke business and DEI.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. No question.
So a lot of good things he has in mind, and his attack on the deep state could also be helpful in curbing the activities of the CIA, in the United States and globally. So let's see. He's a disruptor. Now, since he's a disruptor, it will disrupt a lot of things internally and externally. And the rest of the world will have to cope with it. So let's see what happens.
Interesting. Guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends and families. You won't get such in-depth analysis anywhere else. So that's something that I'm really requesting you. Please do that. And of course, if you guys can contribute towards this channel, use the QR code, PayPal, Super Sticker, Super Chats, or become members of the channel. Trump is going to be an interesting ride, and he's going to impact a lot of things around the world as we go forward. So it's going to be very, very, very extremely fun for geopolitical watchers like me to actually go through what he says and everything, because each sentence is going to be a interesting ride. So let's go. Sanjay ji, thank you so much for your contribution. Parthaji, thank you so much. He says, given the omnipresent nature of the deep state, they will help Trump in all things undemocratic. Should we also milk BRICS and Quad for local manufacturing and defense?
Look, the main players in Quad are United States, Australia, and Japan. All the other two, all of them are military allies. India is not. India and the United States bilaterally are doing very well in terms of the defense sector, though in terms of defense manufacturing in India with American participation, that has yet been effectively seen. We are buying a lot, but joint ventures in the defense sector haven't really yet been realized. With Europe, yes, with Airbus, for example, this transport plane, which actually flew this morning in the January 26th parade, we've done that. There is some manufacturing of some parts of American defense equipment by Tatas and others, but there isn't that kind of real defense cooperation. Some of the other things like the GE404, GE1414, those programs have got delayed a bit. Now, Australia has nothing to contribute in terms of joint defense manufacturing. And Japan still has huge hesitation in cooperating with anyone, including especially India. I won't say especially India, but
even with Australia, they have reservations, sir.
They have reservations in cooperating with us in the defense sector. That program we had about the seaplane never took off. And although we signed some kind of a trade facilitation, defense agreement with Japan, I understand that really nothing has happened on the front, and there is really nothing on the anvil except that particular radar, which is to be fitted on our naval ships, on which negotiations are taking place. There's a lot of hesitation in Japan, partly because of their constitution and mindset, and also they don't see India as a partner in this field. With Philippines, they're making some cooperation as part of their, they have this economic aid program. So they have now another version, which is a security aid program. Under that, they are cooperating with Philippines, but there's nothing that is happening with India. So I don't see Quad as a source of cooperation in defense manufacturing. Where it can actually become useful is that we have an agreement with the United States on emerging and critical and emerging technologies. And this is an area in which we would like to also have an agreement with Japan and Australia, which we don't have. But in the Quad agenda, if you look at the statements we make, there is a provision for some kind of technology cooperation. This is theoretically something on which one could build in the future. but I can't see any joint quadrilateral programs in the defense sector in India. It will ultimately essentially be bilateral in nature.
Rahulji, thank you so much. He says, how do you see fundamental differences between Musk and Trump? For example, renewable energy, climate change playing out.
I think at the end of the day, Trump is the president of the United States. And Musk, of course, is a very strong supporter and having put millions in his campaign, and therefore has influence. And he's there everywhere, apparently, in Mar-a-Lago, and he sits on meetings.
And people are not liking it already, sir.
So, at what moment some kind of clash may occur, I can't say. But I can't get into Trump's mind, but Trump must have rationalized it himself. To what extent he can give space to Musk, and what is his idea of certain limits that Musk should not cross so as not to complicate his overall agenda. But having Musk with him, apart from the fact that he gave him the money, but also in control of the social media, Twitter or X. And now one understands that actually he may help Musk take over TikTok. So once he has these social media platforms in his control, then he can control the narrative.
Hegemony, again hegemony. They approach the same horse from different directions.
So he can control the narrative, and therefore Musk will continue to be useful. I think a lot will depend on how much restraint Musk shows in not becoming far too visible in terms of partnership with Trump. And Trump is mesmerized by his SpaceX program also.
Yeah.
So there it is.
They're two very strong people, sir. I don't know how long they'll last together. It's a little...
No, really, it's interesting. The real power he's the president, so the real power is with him.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the corporate sector in the United States behind the scenes, and many would say, are the real power brokers. But he's only one of them. So Trump is president, is only one president. But Musk is the corporate sector, but there is a whole lot of other players. And Trump and Musk is not a unifying figure where he can represent the corporate sector. So I think he'll be able to handle it.
That's true, sir. A few more questions, sir. Gladiator, thank you so much. He says, will Trump back the Taliban? Will Balochistan separate? Will Iran? Oh man, too many questions in one. Let's talk about Afghanistan itself. And guys, by the way, Afghanistan, we will also talk at night with Rajaji, but let's take sir's opinion. What do you think this whole gambit with Afghanistan that he's opened up, give my weapons back and all that stuff?
Yeah, he has actually extremely violently criticized General Milley, I think.
Mark Milley.
Yeah,
Mark
and he
Milley.
said,
Mark Milley.
Yeah, Mark Milley, that he's an idiot, that he is brand new equipment worth billions he's left behind, and he could easily have shipped it out. And but he said it's more costly shipping it out than leaving it behind. And he said, "What an idiot!" I mean, he had very harsh words to say about it, and so much so that the outgoing president has pardoned Milley. Can you imagine a country where the chief of staff,
basically the chief of the defense staff, sir,
chief of defense staff. Or the American version of it, is pardoned for a crime one doesn't know what it is.
What it is.
No investigation has been made. Just shows the rot in the system, where the head of the Joint Chiefs of Command can be potentially held guilty of some activities which would amount to a crime.
Yeah,
Um,
can you imagine?
on the Taliban, I think this makes no sense. What will we do? Ask the Taliban to ship them? How? You give them money? That here is a few $1 billion or what $1 million, and what he'll send C-17 planes. How many tanks can they count? How many sorties they'll have to make to take these things out?
Not possible.
I don't think that. I think this is part of the debate to embarrass the Democrats and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff,
So,
Milley, and the errors that Biden made rather than anything serious.
my apologies. Explore World, thank you so much. Says, can Russia side by Denmark to stop another Alaska?
No.
That'll be fun to watch.
No, in fact, Russia would be very happy if these kind of contradictions emerge between Europe
NATO.
and the United States, and will weaken the partnership, weaken NATO. And in any case, there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
It's for Europe to defend itself. Now, what they may hope to gain from it by simply keeping quiet is that the sentiment in the street and hopefully in politics in European countries will say that time has come to settle our relationship with Russia, because now we are allowing ourselves to be squeezed by both sides. So we should get more elbow room. We have become far too dependent on the United States, giving us no room for maneuver. If you are fighting imperialism from the east, now we are fighting imperialism from the west. Therefore, we should actually try and forge a policy of our own which looks after our European interests, and therefore encourage a settlement of the Ukrainian conflict and resumption progressively of normal economic ties with Russia, including a lifting of sanctions. That'll give them enormous room vis-a-vis the United States. But they can't have a situation where they continue to be extremely hardline towards Russia, and at the same time increase their own vulnerability towards the United States. I don't think Russia is going to get into this issue.
Double question, sir. Just allow me to read both of them. MEA is aware of online racism against Indians by US and Pakistanis. If yes, why nothing is being done? You don't need to do anything about all this stuff, yeah? Because the minute you start doing anything, you're telling them that you're getting triggered. They'll do it more.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
no, the fact is that part of the MAGA base of Trump is becoming. They are racist in any case.
Yeah.
They started targeting the Hindus, in part because of what Vivek Ramaswamy said. Also, Kash Patel, now the head of the CIA, and then Smriti, and then Tulsi Gabbard, who's a practicing Hindu, and this and that. The other Indian origin people who got prominent places in the system, and then there are forces at work. Then J.D. Vance's wife, she's Hindu, and if he becomes the next president of the United States, which he could well be after Trump's term is over, then you can see we'll have a Hindu lady as the first lady of the United States. So I think this is rankling some elements of the MAGA base, and the Hindus are very vulnerable, because if you go against Islam, then there is the whole Islamic world, and then there's whole Islamophobia thing. There are all the UN resolutions against Islamophobia. But when it comes to Hindu, there's nothing. The only country in the world, and we are also not sure.
It's most of these. Most
we are
of these
also
guys are getting engagement because if I asked this question to Twitter Grok, the AI in Twitter, he said a lot of people are doing this because higher engagements.
Yeah, that is one. The other is that the only country which is a Hindu country, and we actually are resisting our own identity, is India. and there is nothing. There may be Islamophobia sentiment. I mean, there may be all these moves to decry Islamophobia, but there is nothing which says that other than these three religions, of course, against the Jews also, anti-Semitism is decried, castigated. When it comes to Hindus, there's nothing on the international agenda which talks about phobia against the Hindus. So, but then I am told by people who are inside the United States, partly you said it in a different way, that this is not really serious. These are things that are appearing on Twitter and this and that, and they are getting a larger than life image of their own. But the basic issue is not as serious as might be imagined.
So, Gladiator, thank you. How do you assess China's economy, OBOR, and Panama? Panama we spoke about partly, but China's economy after Trump, sir.
But two things insofar as Panama is concerned, the American position, Trump's position is a bit bizarre. Now, it might be that he feels rankled that the management of it has gone to the Chinese. But then the Chinese position themselves in every corner of the world where they are controlling as much as they can the port facilities, building ports or operating them. And it's happened in Europe too. So Panama is not a unique case. But the argument that since America built this Panama Canal, and therefore there's some special right to it, I mean, then why deny the British and the French who built the Suez Canal some kind of rights over Suez Canal even today? I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And then, as you know, Panama was never an independent country. It was carved out of Colombia. The Americans separated it from Colombia when they built this canal. Anyway, that's just another story. Insofar as China is concerned, I'm not an expert on Chinese economy, but superficially I can say that on the one hand, Chinese economy is troubled. Its growth rates have fallen. There is a housing crisis which is serious. There is the same time, if you look at their exports, they've had a record export figure of over $1 trillion.
How much did they spend on? How much did they spend on incentives and
whatever it is? But look at the kind of money that is coming in, which they can use for all sorts of things, especially financing their R&D and defense and everything else. But there are crises. There are crises in vital sectors of the economy. Housing is a very serious problem. Then the indebtedness, internal indebtedness is huge. Now, I got it from someone who operates in China, has operated in China for a long time, and has been doing business between Middle East and China. And he was telling me, I asked him the other day, I said, how was your visit and this and that? He says the remarkable thing is that the Chinese companies today don't have money. And they are not taking up big projects. I said, what about the Middle East, all these bigger projects that Saudi Arabia has, or 2030, this Naim project they have, UAE has. He says they're only taking up small projects because they don't have money to finance the big projects. So there is a crisis. He has attacked the private sector in Xi Jinping in China. But let me put it this way, that China's economy is so big, and there's so many linkages between the Chinese economy and the rest of the world, as not only the biggest exporting country, but now controlling many vital sectors of the future global economy, that they cannot be allowed to sink or fall into serious economic problems because of the repercussions that will have on the global economy as such. Therefore, uh, we get some satisfaction that China's rise has slowed down and it is facing economic problems. But I don't think we should assume that this will cripple China in any serious way, and that will continue to be a very big economic force in global affairs.
So there are just three people I'd like to acknowledge before we end the show, because there are three questions which are not part of this particular program. So I'll just mention them. Bila Baba ki jai, thank you. Why are we giving technology transfer to BrahMos to Indonesia? Well, we are not giving any technology transfer. Firstly, there is no deal that has been signed with Indonesia for the BrahMos. There is one obscure article, I think, written by Manu Pabi, if I'm not mistaken, which talks about it. So it's nothing right now. Nobody gives us technology like that. And agar aap doge bhi, you will give only certain part of your technology for a certain type of missile, right? So it's not, nobody gives you the first-hand technology ever. Thought provocator, thank you, sir.
No. My information is that actually even the sale of BrahMos to Indonesia is currently not on the agenda. Leave aside the question of technology transfer, which cannot happen, which won't happen. But even there is no serious proposition on the table for the sale of BrahMos to Indonesia.
They're talking about it, and they've asked for. Actually, we've asked for a port access or something like that, and they are not happy with that. And there's a whole ching-chang which is happening. But it's good, sir. I'm happy that we're talking about it at least. Thought provocator, thank you so much. Can we start making India for Shinmawa planes, which have tremendous export potential, similar planes used as in firefighting as well?
Not really. First of all, it's a hugely expensive plane. So our Navy is not interested. And Abe was pushing this, and we thought that this could be the starting point of broader cooperation. We wanted some military components to this plane, which the Japanese were refusing. But really speaking, we didn't feel that it was terribly necessary for our needs, and it was terribly expensive. So that project has died down, and I don't think we need to revive it. Now, if it's a question of firefighting, the interesting thing you may have also come across, as you are very alert with regard to these matters, the Russians have the best firefighting plane in the world, that BE something, which could have actually worked extremely well in the Los Angeles fires. And they were willing to sell it to the United States.
They offered it. They said, we'll send you the planes.
Yeah, but they didn't accept. So I think if you have to go in for some real firefighting capability, then maybe we can look to Russia.
Yeah, we should. All right, Mr. Gamer, thank you for 2 of your super stickers. Sir, thank you so much for the time and the insight. It's been a pleasure talking to you this Sunday afternoon. It's a very interesting scenario that we have find ourselves in. And my request to everybody would be just keep a little focus right now. It's changing times, changing world order, weird things happen. It'll be fun to watch. On that note, sir, namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much.